Thank you for listening to the Distinguished Physical Education Podcast, where we discuss best practices in PE and share expert insights from thought leaders in the PE community. Today's episode is a special one. Jen Smith and I are joined by three incredible PE teachers from Denver who recently completed the Becoming a Distinguished Physical Education Teacher book study. Jessie Erikson had 11 years of classroom experience and is now in her second year of teaching physical education. Byron Robinson is also in his second year as a PE teacher, having made the leap to education from a previous career just 2 years ago. And Scott Harris is an elementary PE teacher who, like Jessie, began his career in the classroom and has spent the last decade in the gym. It was an honor to sit down with these three educators. We had a powerful conversation about growth, reflection, and the instructional changes they made that had a meaningful impact on their students. Whether or not you're interested in signing up for the course, which begins this August, this episode is full of practical strategies, honest reflections, and powerful takeaways that any PE teacher can learn from. I'm so grateful to these teachers for sharing their time and experiences with us, and I know you'll walk away with ideas that you can take back to your own gym. Before we jump into the conversation, I want to quickly clarify a few terms and acronyms that come up throughout the episode. LEAP stands for Leading Effective Academic Practice. It's the growth and evaluation framework we use in Denver to define effective teaching. CLOs are content and language objectives. I've talked about these in previous episodes, most notably in episode 8. PDUs refer to professional development units. These are in-district courses that allow teachers to earn the equivalent of college credit and move over on the pay scale. Our DPE book study was one of those PDUs. And finally, learning labs are when either Jen or I take a group of PE teachers to observe a colleague teach. It's a powerful way to learn from one another in action. With that said, it's my pleasure to bring you BK, Jessie, Scott, and Jen. I'm joined by three Denver PE teachers, Byron, Jessie, and Scott, as well as our instructional curriculum specialist, Jen Smith. I want to start by saying how grateful I am to have the four of you here. You each brought so much to this first round of the book study, not just through your reflections, but through your willingness to try new things, to challenge yourselves, and to be open about the work that you do as PE teachers. I'm excited that you each agreed to take the time here to share your growth, your thinking, and the impact that you've made on your students through this experience. And I'm confident that your insights are going to resonate with many other physical education teachers. So thank you again for doing this, and let's get started. BK, I'm going to start by asking you, what was your motivation for signing up for this book study in the first place?
My motivation was what I thought the impact would have on my students. What intrigued me initially was the book's compelling title. The two words stood out to me: becoming and distinguished. When I saw becoming, I thought of growth, and that's something that I want to always continually do as a teacher. And distinguished made me think of how, as teachers, we're evaluated into one of four categories: not meeting, approaching, meeting, and distinguished. And so this is my third year teaching. I've been in the meeting category for 2 years. I want to, eventually be in the distinguished category. So that's always a goal of mine. More importantly, I want my students to become, I kind of phrase this, competent, confident, independent learners of character. And lastly, I am familiar with the author, so I knew the information would be insightful and impactful.
Thanks, BK. Thanks for the kind words. So you had motivations for your own professional growth, and then you also just want to provide the best experience that you can for your students inside your gym. And I've seen you do that firsthand. It was a pleasure having you as part of this first course. Jessie, what are your thoughts? What made you want to sign up for our DPE book study?
For me personally, I saw the book study as an opportunity to grow, not just in what I was teaching, but how I was teaching it. And the whole idea, just with the standards changing and being in my own little PE world in my school, I wanted that collaborative practice and coming together with the opportunity to connect with other PE teachers from our district, being able to focus on the intentional and reflective planning. And I really liked the way it was laid out. Instead of trying to take that big chunk all at once, like getting to work with others on like little opportunities to improve myself and my perspectives and push myself to keep improving. And also, like BK said, the author, he's come to my gym plenty of times. And it's just really nice to get some fresh ideas and perspectives on how to do things a little differently.
Jessie, you hit on a couple of things that I'm really glad that you said because they were very intentional. So one was that Jen and I both wanted this to be a collaborative experience between teachers from all across the city. This book study wasn't supposed to be just about everything that Jen and I know about PE. We had 20 or 25 experienced PE teachers, experts even, in the room. And I'm honored to hear you say that you felt that that expertise was brought out in our sessions. The other part was that you're right. It wasn't designed to be like a 2 or 3 day session where we talk PE for 8 hours. It's spread out over the course of, I think we did 9 sessions. Is that right? And there's a lot of job embedded work in between those sessions. So you get to implement those things in your practice after you learn them. Scott, any thoughts on why you decided to sign up for this book study?
Yeah, absolutely. I was really interested in elevating my PE instructional skills. I've been teaching PE and DPS now for about 9 years. I like to say I'm not a classically trained PE teacher because I started off in the classroom. And I really thought this would be a great opportunity to work closely with, my peers. I get a lot of value out of working with other PE teachers and just kind of hearing all of the things that they've gone through and learning from their experience. Also, last year, you and I got to work together, Gary, because I had a new assistant principal who was my coach, making sure that she was aligned with the LEAP framework. And having worked closely with you, I knew that it was going to be a good opportunity to grow. Having worked with you firsthand, I thought that was going to be pretty valuable to me. Also, Jen was working with it, so I knew that was going to be a good experience. And overall, it was just more than I could have hoped for.
I appreciate hearing you say that, Scott. Jen, I don't think this book study would have happened without your persistence. What about your motivation for having us create something like this for the teachers in Denver?
I've run PDUs even before I became the instructional specialist. So as a teacher leader in the district for PE, I've run 1 or 2 each year with different concepts as the focus. And as soon as you shared a chapter of your book with me and then knew it was going to be finished, I was like, let's get these books in the hands of PE teachers. Let's use my PDU to run this book study. I've never done a book study before, and people signed up on day 1. And I am so grateful for the impact that is made on the teachers. And I see the impact with the students. So yeah, that was just my motivation to get you to finish it so we could get it out to the schools and get this going. And we did it.
Isn't it incredible how many reflective physical education teachers we have here in Denver? I mean, that's the thing that stood out to me the most was just the way that people showed up for each one of our sessions, like just always willing to dig in deeper, to reflect on their practice and to share the things that they're doing in their gyms with their colleagues. That was the part that inspired me the most. Byron, I'm going to go back to you because you talked about how the course influenced your teaching style. Could you dig a little bit deeper into the different parts of your practice that were influenced by the book study and what you learned from it?
I would say everything associated with the book study just helped me to reflect on my practice and helped me to honestly assess my strengths and weaknesses. I think it helped me to be more disciplined in my preparations for my classes. Now I always have the instant activity, the content and language objectives, essential question, sentence stems visible on my whiteboard. So my students know what they're learning, why they're learning it, how they're going to show their learning. And then also implementing opportunities for students to share information and make time at the end of class to debrief for ideal student responses. Because I always ask my kids what they learned in PE today. So I want them to go home and share that. I tell them the best way to remember something is to share it or teach it. If they're asked, what did you learn in PE today? Instead of them saying, oh, we just played badminton, I want them to be able to express their learning.
A lot of the things that you just described, I've seen you do consistently in your gym. So it sounds like maybe this course just helped you be a little bit more intentional about some of those things, maybe tweak a few dials and just really specifically and intentionally plan for a couple of those elements that you mentioned. Scott, what about you? What about this course has influenced your teaching style or your approach in the gym?
I think it's helped me be more deliberate with my instruction. I feel like I brought a lot of my classroom management skills from the classroom into PE, and I think I've been fairly successful in the gym. I think that this course really allowed me to like hone in on the specific PE content so that I could help maximize my instructional time. And I think along that path, it makes the classes more enjoyable and more academically rigorous. I think that the kids, like BK said, you don't want them to just be like, oh yeah, we played. It's like, no, let's get specific about it. And when they have that reflection time, they can get a little deeper. And when they're reflecting, they can make these connections.
One thing that I notice from teachers who come from the classroom and go into the gym is that their learning environment is almost always effective. They're usually able to bring effective classroom management practices in from the classroom that they taught in and adapt them to look a little bit different in the gym, but they usually have very strong learning environment skills. So it sounds like for you, this course was more about just filling in some gaps with the PE content side of things.
I used to think like I was one of the few teachers that's, moved into PE, one of the few classroom teachers. But every time I'm with a group of PE teachers, they're like, oh yeah, I came from the classroom too. And I think it's great. I definitely when I find them, I start asking them questions, to dig down a little deeper to figure out kind of what are some of the pitfalls and challenges that they've run into making this transition over. But yeah, I think it's absolutely been helpful to me. And this PDU definitely helped me grow and I think have more success.
I have a group of 10 teachers from a district in Texas who signed up for the book study that's coming up in August. And I think the majority of them came from the classroom. So I'm really looking forward to having those folks in the book study because they're so reflective and so ready to learn about what these strategies look like in the gym. Jessie, what about you? Anything you'd like to share as far as how what you learned in the course influenced your teaching style?
So actually, like Scott, I came from the classroom. I spent 11 years in the classroom before moving over to PE. And this book study just really helped me leave feeling empowered with the conversations and the reflections that I got to have and collaborate with other PE teachers in our district. It really helped me push myself to be more intentional just about the way I was teaching, how I was showing up for my students, how I was communicating things, how I was creating the space, what I was structuring, how it was supportive, what I needed to change. And for me, like working through this book study, it wasn't about changing everything I was doing. And each month or each session, it really helped me focus on one thing I wanted to change or try differently and get a clear picture around what that was going to look like from listening to others, from even doing a learning lab and going to see what others are doing. So again, it wasn't like I was throwing everything out. It was more just like fine tuning what I was doing and digging deeper and being more intentional throughout the whole year. And I can see like from where I started in the beginning of the year to even where I ended now, like just this complete revelation of things I tried and are working better for me, but also really working for my students too, and those relationships that I have with them.
Jessie, I think I'll stick with you because what I'd like to know is in less general terms, more specific, can you think of a moment where you applied something that you learned from the book study? And then I also would love if you could share the impact that it had on your students.
Yes, we had this whole conversation, it was probably either October or November in our session where we talked about like how we start class and the idea of having the kids come in and sit on home base spots. And I was like, I don't do home base spots. That's not my style. We all sit on a campfire. And that's how we introduce things. But during that time, I was like, all of my like partner teachers are having kids sit on home base spots. I can totally do this too. And I also was being reflective and I was like, it's not working for every class. Some of my classes can do it. Behavior has changed. Routines have changed. It's just taking us a longer time to get started. So the next day I went in and I put sit spots on the floor. I assigned sit spots to 450 kids in our school. And we spent one day practicing how to do this. And it has been a complete game changer for us. We have 2 spots we go to in the gym. It's either those spots or we go to the campfire, and they know where to go and who to sit to. They know who to turn and talk to almost immediately. That was the one thing that I was like, okay, fine, I'm going to try it. And it worked so incredibly well. Something else like we did was just like the whole session about content and learning objectives, which when I was in the classroom, I was amazing at writing. When I went into PE, I struggled. But with all the little resources that you gave us, walking through how to write them, I feel like I've been able to make them really strong and also deliver them to my students so that they could walk away with like, oh, this is exactly what I'm doing today. And I know that I've done it, and they can self-assess themselves on the way out. So those are like my big 2. My kids know what they're doing and my kids know where to go. And we waste probably less than 10 seconds doing our jobs.
Yeah, I remember the day after that session you talked about where we went over home base throws and the advantages. You texted me a picture of the spots on your gym floor and you said that you had done it like early that morning. And I was like, oh, wow, she did it in the last week between the session and today. And then it took me a second to realize, oh, that wasn't a week ago. That was last night that we did that session. And Jessie went in there and changed the whole organization of her gym. So I'm glad to hear that it had a positive impact on your students. And yeah, that CLO session that we do is dense. There's a lot in that one. But one of the things that we talk about, like BK and Scott alluded to also earlier, is what do you want your students to learn based on a standard? What are they going to walk away from PE saying that they learned that day? And like you mentioned, Jessie, how are you going to communicate that to students in student-friendly language? We're not talking about how you write an objective on a lesson plan in that session necessarily. We're talking about how you communicate it to students so that they understand the objective and what they're going to make progress towards. BK, what are your thoughts on a specific moment when you applied something that you learned from our book study?
One of my routines is for my kids to give me 5 when the music stops during an activity. And so during my striking with an implement unit, I found that many of my students were preoccupied with the implement. It was with badminton. And so I recalled in your book that you stated to have the students just put their implement down, take one big step away, and then sit down. So I tried that and it was very effective. It worked extremely well. The kids, they were more apt to actively listen, to participate in discussions, and it saved time. So I was very thankful for that because students, whenever they have something in their hands, it's such a distraction. And so that was very helpful.
I think that's going to resonate with a lot of PE teachers that listen to this. Just very simple strategies like that, like Scott mentioned earlier, to increase the amount of time that you have to communicate things like objectives or to assess students. And then, of course, to increase student activity time as well. Scott, what about you? Do you have an example of something that you applied in your class and the impact that it had on your students?
Yeah, I think it was being more deliberate with the CLOs. And maybe this is not a specific example, it's kind of something that's been happening over the course of this PDU, but just being more deliberate with those CLOs. And I feel like the conversations that we're able to have when we're first reviewing the CLOs and then, then we kind of check in with the kids partway through. And then when we have our closers with them and we're talking about what we learned based on the CLOs. And I think just having them up there consistently has helped the kids process what they're doing. And I think that in that processing, it helps them grow with their skill acquisition. rather than just the doing part, just like in the CLO says, I will be able to verbally explain and physically demonstrate. It's not just the physical part, but it's the verbally explain. And when you can do that, I feel like they are acquiring these skills with more fidelity.
I couldn't agree more. Some of that language might seem a little foreign to people outside of Denver who hear that, but luckily, Jen and I did an episode on content and language objectives. So if people want to go back and learn more about that, I think it was episode 8. Jen, is there anything that you have seen as you travel around to various schools that you've seen teachers implement as a result of the book study?
Yes, a lot of the change that I have seen is the balance of teacher talk and student talk. So I think realizing keep it quick, get them moving, coming back in chunks so they still are learning throughout. And it's not just, okay, send them out to play because we shouldn't be talking, but chunking out the lesson instead of launching at the beginning all of the things. I've seen that probably is the biggest change I've seen out in the field.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the areas of focus that we had was balancing 3 different things, balancing teacher talk, opportunities for students to communicate as well, to articulate their learning, and of course, physical activity. Those are the 3 different pieces that all PE teachers have to balance. And we want to make sure that we're not taking much time away from the activities that students get to participate in. So we really have to learn efficient ways to do things like communicate objectives, to assess students by asking them questions. One thing that motivates me in the role that I have, and when I got this role, I think almost 12 years ago, was that I knew exactly what it felt like to be a teacher who was getting close to burning out, starting to get that feeling a little bit, and there not being the level of support that I think I needed. The district that I taught in Arizona didn't really have the type of PE support that we offer here in DPS that Jen and I are so proud of. While we do this for students, of course, I've always thought that it was also important to think about it from the teacher perspective, because we want to retain good teachers in the profession. And then, of course, hopefully even in Denver. So thinking about it from the teacher perspective, what impact has this book study had on you personally and professionally, and your ability to remain motivated and stay fresh in the gym and put your best foot forward for your students?
I'd love to jump in because I could echo a lot of the things that you said about burnout. I mean, I felt like I was in a bit of a rut. I'll be honest, I tell everyone I have the best job in the building, but I do feel like year after year, I was like, it's just more of the same. Even though I'm switching up my units from time to time, I felt like I was in a rut. And I just wanted to do something to break out of that. It was another motivator for me to take this PDU with you guys. I feel like I've got a renewed sense of purpose by learning all of these things, or from learning all these things from the book study. I knew some of them, but I wasn't necessarily implementing them with fidelity. So the fact that I could, remind myself and then learn from and then talk with these people, our coworkers, our colleagues, I definitely feel like it helped me get out of that rut. And I'm really hoping to kind of build on that momentum moving into next school year. And then now I got to think of what's the next thing I want to do to up the ante? How do I want to change things in the next way? I am thinking about that. But yeah, I definitely felt, a renewed sense of purpose after this.
I can relate to a lot of what you just said, Scott. And I love my job, and I feel like it's impactful for the teachers that I get to support. But I also realize that one day when I do go back into the gym, I don't think I'm going to feel that level of burnout that I was feeling in the last year or 2 that I was teaching, because of similar things to what you just said. I have so many new things that I can try and experiment with and implement based on what I've seen from so many brilliant PE teachers in Denver over the last decade or so. So I was really connecting with what you said. Jessie, what about you?
I don't really want to say I was having burnout, but we've had a lot of transition at my school over the past few years, to the point where I felt very isolated. I felt very alone, felt very much like I was in my own little bubble, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it doesn't really help you grow. You get forgotten about. For me, the book study really helped me reconnect with my why. Why am I in this position? What do I want to get out of this? What can I do for myself to do that? And it gave me the confidence to keep trying, like to try new things. Oh, hey, Scott did this, BK did that. What can I try that would maybe give me that sense of purpose or help me support my students a little bit better? Just taking those little things away helped me remember I didn't have to do this by myself. I had a whole group of people, maybe not somebody I could connect with every day, but it gave me that support and that confidence to keep asking questions and that community around that. And that was one of the biggest things that helped me, because when you are in the classroom, you usually have a team. You have a team of other teachers that are teaching the same content, working with the same students. You feel like you can bounce ideas off all the time. But when you are in a gym and the only people that walk down there really are the teachers to drop off and pick up their students, you're just like, hey, welcome to my world. PE is a beast. And I didn't think I realized that when I left the classroom, how much it entails. It's not just about the physical skill, it's the social emotional, it's keeping everybody safe, like all of those things. And just hearing like other teachers and their struggles helped me be like, okay, this is normal. How do I want to change this? And it really brought back the enjoyment of what I was doing and my purpose for like, oh yes, my job is to create these awesome, kind kids who love moving and playing and working together. And we'll start doing that outside of the playground, or we'll help each other in different situations and can apply that to something that they've done in my class or in the gym. And those connections are amazing and huge for me.
It was great to hear you highlight the community that we built in this book club and how willing people were to share their ideas. And I think it's worth noting, because both you and Scott kind of touched on it, that while this book study, I think, is great for new teachers, you all are veterans at this point. BK, you'll have to remind me how many years you've been teaching, but I just think it's really powerful to hear you all reflect on how you've been doing this for so many years, but there still was room for you to grow a little bit, and your willingness to reflect and to still experiment as veteran teachers, I found inspiring the entire time. BK, what are your thoughts?
So this is year 3 for me. One thing that I appreciate with both Scott and Jess, Scott said purpose and Jess said her why. And those two are connected. I have that written in my office right above my desk, remember your why, because that's how I get through everything. I don't care about what's going on outside. If I remember my why, then I know my purpose. So this book study course has really given me a clear insight into what kind of teacher I want to be and how I want my classrooms to look. And I really think this book study is not only a blueprint for how to become a distinguished teacher, but really how to build a high quality PE program. When one's walking to my gym, I want them to be impressed, not just with my teaching, with my students, with my instruction. I want them to see how well organized everything is. I want them to see my students, expressing their learning, sharing information. And I want to empower them. That's one thing I learned from Jen. I want to empower my students to use their voices, share their thoughts, explore different interests, take risks, be willing to fail and learn and grow from that. So my purpose, my why, that's one thing that this book study has really helped me to reflect on.
I appreciate those reflections. I really do. BK, while I have you, if we move over to thinking about the impact that this learning had on your students, one of the things that I'm thinking about, one of my favorite moments from our time together in this course was the video that you shared, where you had some of your kids talk about the impact that your new learning has had on their experience in the gym. Can you talk a little bit about either that experience, interviewing students and getting feedback from kids on their experiences, or just in general, how your students have benefited from some of the changes that you've made in the gym?
I would say that my students, they've really adapted to the routines and expectations. The content and language objectives have been extremely beneficial. They're able to really connect the language to the content. They're able to, apply the skills to various activities. They're able to understand that learning basic skills such as overhand and underhand throwing helps them with more advanced skills, such as serving a volleyball or executing a badminton serve. So it's impacted their growth. And I would say more than anything, just they have more fun and they're more joyful. And that interview with two of my fifth graders, they just shared so much information of how much they learned and enjoyed PE more. They appreciated that I talked less because I had a proclivity to explain the content and language objectives to where it would cut into their physical activity. So that's one thing they expressed to me. And I appreciate that they were willing to express that because that told me that they felt comfortable to share that information.
Yeah, that really speaks to the culture that you build in your gym where students felt comfortable enough to give you that type of feedback. I mean, that interview was incredible.
If you recall when he was explaining, because I always tell the kids, I don't like gym teacher, and how Ben, he explained what physical education was better than I could. He said that education is the language and the physical is what they're learning physically. I mean, it was just incredible. And both he and Layla, how they talked about glow and grow and how they were able to go out, do the physical activity, come back, learn the language, go back and apply what they just learned.
It's because you turned the things that we talked about in this course into routine. You didn't just go do it one time. You made it a consistent part of your class. And as a result, students were able to pick up on it and to communicate about it and to share their experiences. Hey, Gary here, calling a quick timeout to give a little context for what you're about to hear. You just heard BK and I talk about the powerful interview that he did with two of his students as part of his final book study project. I want to pause the interview and play a short clip from that conversation so you can hear directly from his students about how they experienced the changes he made in his teaching.
One thing I would like to share is, I dislike the terms gym teacher, gym class, because I don't think that really is indicative of what I teach, nor does it really identify who I am as a teacher.
It's not just gym and you're coming and playing. It's physical education where you're teaching us how to do the skills and the vocabulary of it. And then we still get to do the education is the vocabulary and how to do the skills. And then the physical is going out into the gym and doing it.
Right.
What you just taught us.
Yes. Thank you. Right.
I've enjoyed the new way you've been teaching us in this past month and a half.
I appreciate your thoughts, and I always welcome your thoughts.
Thanks.
Right?
Thanks for having us.
Because I not only want you to learn from me, I learn from you as well. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
And now back to the episode. Jessie, I know that you had an opportunity a little bit earlier to share about the impact that some of your learning has had on students. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Yeah. So, with the book, I feel like it was very clearly laid out, and you had really awesome examples, like with scripts in that book. So it was really easy to imagine and put into practice. And then during our sessions, we were able to really talk about something we tried or reflect on a different scenario together. When you walked away, you could kind of start putting that into what you were doing in the next month or into the lessons that you were doing. And I really did start to notice, especially with my fifth graders who I've had since they were in second grade, just like how that structure for them has shifted a little bit, but they were so used to those routines and rituals, and what I was doing with the book study just helped them even more, like with what they were able to look for when they came into the gym. They knew exactly where to go now. And there wasn't any time for them to mess around. So from the moment they entered to the moment they left, they had a purpose for what they were doing. And they could, based on what words they saw on the word wall, I started to put GIFs or images or pictures or something that represented them, especially on my board, of what they should be doing. And that just gave them more connection and just more meaning to what they were trying to do. And like one of my fifth graders, love him. He's a very hard student. He has always been very hard, but he came in and he saw what we were doing. He's like, Miss, they look just like us. Let's go. We can do this. And he like grabbed his team and he just went and took off because the expectations were there. He knew what to do with the changes I've made. And like he flourished. And the whole time, like he looks at the board, he sees what words we should be using. He knows what the CLO is, and he will like use that language in his sentences when he is talking to his team. And I'll look at him. He's like, I know that you wanted me to say strike, and I know that that's what I'm working on. So I'm going to make sure that I keep saying it. Like, and he cracks me up, but like, it's so important to him to succeed in that area. That was just one example, but seeing the children like thrive with that is so meaningful and so impactful. And like just seeing their sense of ownership because the kids look like them or it is them. They want to make the videos and they're trying really hard. It just improves like my relationship with them too. And that's that big connection. And that's what we need. So, and that's what I love about it.
I got to see that firsthand during that volleying lesson that you did a month or so ago, where you had GIFs up on the wall of some of your students. And I noticed the impact that it had on your kids. So I think that combined with the high expectations that you have, and you also spoke towards like a sense of urgency. You don't have a lot of time in your PE class. You have a lot of things that you want to get covered. That combination of students wanting to be in the gym, being motivated to engage in all of these activities, having it communicated to them that they have a lot that they need to learn and engage in during this lesson, it really does have a positive impact on challenging students' behaviors because they just want to be a part of all of those activities.
Yeah, in the book, when you were saying like meet them at the door, tell them, oh, we have so much to do. These are the activities I have planned. I really took that to heart and like really started to like, hey, we have this, and this. Third grade didn't get to that last activity because we weren't focused on the language or we weren't focused on what we needed to be doing. We didn't clean up fast enough. So then the next group will just like start owning it. Like, oh, 10 seconds, she's counting down. Everybody grab something. Let's go. Like they've got it down. And that's really cool. And my example with my friend Jalen, he owned it. Like, oh, she is looking for us to use those sentence stems that she put up on the board. If I use them, we are moving on. And when he starts doing that, the other students follow. And that's what's amazing. They start using the language, and that's what we want.
That's the oldest trick in the book, is to call out the third grade that didn't get to do all the things, but it works every time. Scott, any thoughts on the impact of what you learned in the book study has had on your students?
Yeah, absolutely. So I alluded to this earlier, and it's basically the skill acquisition. So between like the content learning objectives, the academic language that we're using, the peer coaching, I think that's really enhanced the overall experience for the kids, and it's really helped deepen their learning. But as far as like the time management goes, this is a hard part because, you know, in DPS, we have that 50% movement target that we're trying to hit, you know? And so like making classes more rigorous and making sure you're hitting on these content learning objectives, it's hard to make sure that you're not taking away from that 50%. So it's really a balancing act. And if you can instill that sense of urgency in the kids, then you can absolutely add in that rigor that deepens their knowledge and then still hit your target of 50%, which it's taken a while for me to find that balance, but I think I'm able to hit it.
Yeah, it's not easy to do. There's a lot of moving parts that you want to try to fit into a 45-minute class. Jen?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on, for Denver Public Schools, we have a lot of Title I schools. Most of the participants this past round had very similar demographics. And I think that connection too, because if somebody was listening to this and didn't have a background, they'd be like, oh, I'm sure their students are so easy and they're going to listen to this and be able to say all these things. And we're the opposite. We have to work really hard in our district. And that's why I think we are pushing forward, and hopefully others jump on and follow what we're doing. And that content language objective, it is there not to make our lives harder or just to put on the board. Those multilingual learners or English language learners, that helps them. They feel connected. They're able to use PE language is new to a lot of people sometimes. Muscular endurance, cardiovascular endurance, those are new words to any student. So when they're hearing that language, they're hearing what they should be saying. They're getting the sentence stems in their native language or in English to compare. That's the work we're doing. And then with everyone in this group, they got to say, oh, it's not just me, or you seem to have the same kind of students that I've been struggling with. And that's why all the connections that they keep talking about, it's because we are working hard, and we got to have that time to reflect with each other and learn from each other.
Yeah, it's such an important point, Jen. I appreciate you bringing that up to share a little bit more about the demographics of the students that our teachers teach here in Denver. Finishing up with our last thoughts here. For the people who are considering taking this book study starting in August of 2025, what advice would you have for them? Scott, you want to start us off?
Jump on it. I mean, I really feel like the cost benefit ratio is just insane. We met once a month. I think the sessions were like 2.5 hours. And there was so much opportunity to like not just learn from the book, but to learn from the other people in our cohort that were, taking this course. Because there were so many breakout sessions where we would meet in small groups of like 2 or 3 and we could discuss things. And just it's fast paced, it's relevant. Man, I got so much out of it. I'm really happy I took it.
Scott, I appreciate that. Yeah, we've talked over and over again through this conversation about how important it is to have that PE community. And Jen and I were not lecturers. It wasn't our job for 90 minutes to talk PE at folks. I'm really glad that you brought that part up about the different breakout rooms and opportunities for teachers to reflect on the prompts that we shared and some of the text in the book, but to bring their own experiences into it.
Yeah, and if I could just say also, and I think I mentioned this to you before, but when you're doing like Zoom meetings, I don't know, it's kind of easy to tune out, but this was really interactive. It was engaging. You don't have an opportunity to tune out. And I think that, when you're tuning out, that's when things get boring. But when you're up and active and engaged, in this case mentally, because we're doing it on Zoom rather than physically, but it's just, you're present. You're there, and there's a lot more to take away.
Yeah, everybody was always so willing to share, which was great because I hate cold calling on adults. So I was glad that I didn't get put in that position all too often. Jessie, what do you think? What's some advice that you might have for folks who are thinking about joining us in August?
You learn so much. And if we want our students to learn, we have to learn too. And that's why we are here. And it's a process. Like, this whole thing is a process, and it's not asking you to be perfect. It's not asking you to change everything you're doing. This book study, this course is just asking you to come as you are, to give ideas and to keep growing. And you will have, like what Scott said, I don't think I can say it better. It wasn't a huge time commitment. It was a nice excuse to go lock myself in a bedroom for a while and be able to talk to people that are like-minded. And what Jen said, my school is 90% free and reduced lunch. We have an effective needs program. We have a Tinley program. We have so many different types of students, and being able to connect with people that serve those students and get ideas just to try and to take away, it makes you stronger. It makes you more adaptable and flexible. And it's so fun to see what other people are doing and to come away with what you can do better and keep trying. So there's a million other things, like reading that book and going back to that book, constantly going back. There's so many other things I want to try for next year. and to keep going. So I'm excited for number 2.
If number 2 exists, Jen's pushing for it. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I appreciate you bringing up that point, Jessie, about trying things out over the course of a year or even over the course of multiple years. I believe in the introduction to the book at the very end, I said something to that effect. Like, you shouldn't have to feel like all the things that you're about to read need to be implemented this year, right away, right now. So I'm really glad that you reiterated that and picked up on it. Jen, as someone who is such a huge advocate of this program, do you have anything that you would like to share with folks who are considering? And then we'll finish up with BK.
Yeah, just the perspective of I'm out of the classroom now. I do go in and I help model lessons, and instructional coaching is part of my role. So being a part of this, I got to hear so many different perspectives and ideas that now when I go in and coach and somebody's like, nope, I'm not going to do rows and spots. And I'm like, well, let me tell you a story about Jessie. And so just simple things like that I got to hear, oh, the school right down the street from you, they tried this, and, maybe connect with them. So it's helped in my role to go in and help model too, and to be able to give suggestions that I'm in it. I see it. I might not be teaching every day anymore, but I try to stay with the trends, get in there and help teach so I'm not out of the loop and I feel what you guys are feeling. So I think you don't have to be a teacher either to take this, because I think the different perspectives that you hear and to get connected with your teachers is a big push as well.
Thanks for sharing, Jen. I think that we have the approach that while we are proud of our experience, right? Jen, you and I have been in education for a couple decades now at this point. We know what we're talking about, but what we really wanted to do in this book course, this book study, was to facilitate learning of others and get other PE teachers to share their experiences with each other. I know that we both approached it as learners as well, so it was really cool to hear you say that you came away with it with other experiences and other stories that you could go share to continue helping other teachers improve. All right, BK, you ready to close us out?
Yes, sir. I would strongly encourage ones to take the course study and read the book, because both offer a wealth of learning. There's a quote attributed to Albert Einstein. He said, once you stop learning, you start dying. And so we should always take that opportunity to learn. I just go back to what kind of teacher do you want to be? What kind of program do you want to have? I think the reason why teachers get in ruts, get burned out, no longer want to teach is because they get comfortable. And once you get comfortable, you're going to do the same old things. And so both the book study and this book, they're invaluable. And I would take it over again. And I need a new book. And I'll buy a new book because my book is half of the pages are out and it's my study book. I have notes all over it. So I really want you have a hardcover?
I do. BK, do you want a hardcover? I'll get you one.
Hardcover, because that is my resource and I still review it often. So just because the book study is over with, nope, it's always on my desk and I review it often. So I
will have a hardcover version of the book to you before the end of the school year, and I'm not going to devalue it by signing it or writing anything in it. It'll be a fresh copy hardcover book for you. I really want to thank each of you so much for spending the last hour reflecting on your experience in the book club, for sharing your expertise with teachers from across the world who listen to this. And I just really appreciate each of you for taking the time to do this. So thank you so much for sharing your experience from the book study with teachers and for taking time to reflect tonight. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Hey, if you're still listening, I want to thank you for sticking with us all the way to the end. Here's something just for you. I'm giving away one free spot in the upcoming Becoming a Distinguished Physical Education Teacher book study that kicks off in August 2025. To enter, just send me a quick message. You can DM me on Instagram or X, or shoot me an email at gary@distinguishedpe.com. Mention that you heard about this free spot at the end of the book study episode, and I'll randomly select one person from the responses that I receive. Thanks again for being part of this community and for doing the work to keep growing as a PE teacher.